Good evening. Today is August 26, 2013. This is a meeting of the Revere City Council's Ways and Means Subcommittee. We have two items in today's agenda. Item number 13-122, which is an ordinance relative to the certain persons not represented under Mass General Law, Chapter 150E, Section 10. And item number 13-169, establishment of a revolving fund for employee training and public relations. I'm going to request that we keep the establishment of a revolving fund for employee training and public relations in committee. I know we requested George Anzoni's, the Director of Finance for the city's attendance, just to ask a couple of questions about this item, and I'd like to keep this in committee. The second item is relative to raises for individuals who are not part of collective bargaining units. And we, earlier this year, had a couple of sections that dealt with salaries that folks make. And we're going to take up Section 1, which is just the provision that those who do not have collective bargaining power receive the same percentage of increase in compensation negotiated by the city and the unions, Unit A, B, and C for fiscal year 2012, 2013, and 2014. I'm going to open it up to councilors if they have any questions or concerns. Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, how many people are we speaking about in this particular? How many positions are we speaking about?
Councilor Guanasso, my understanding is that there are 3 or 4 people who are not covered under collective bargaining. It'd be the mayor, city clerk, the Director of Finance, and the city solicitor. That's my understanding. I don't know if any other councilors know differently, but I think that those are the 4 positions that are not covered under collective bargaining unions.
And what was the reason why they were never under this policy? Do we have any thoughts on why that?
Why they're not part of the union?
Yeah.
My understanding is that as far as union representation, generally managers or department heads are not part of unions. So there would be a difference between a department head who is not union and works at the will of the mayor versus some of the people that work under the department head who are part of different unions. Unfortunately, we've had some department heads who are actually part of union.
Yeah, I can't understand why in the whole of the city government we would allow 4 to be not part of the process. You know, it doesn't seem reasonable or fair to me. We're part of it, I think. And we operate similar to the mayor. We seek election and we do things the same way the mayor does. I think it's only fair that they be inclusive in the process. You know, it's just my way of thinking that, you know, why should 4 be exempt from it, where the rest of us are all included?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Penta.
Basically a point, and then it's a point. We are not in the union negotiations. We are actually with the same 4 people you just mentioned. We are lumped with them: the mayor, the treasurer, the city clerk. Years back, what they did was, it was never a good time to give anybody raises out. What they did is they lumped them in. If the union got a 2% raise, that would follow through with those people. How other people got in unions and different departments as leaders, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me how you have, you know, someone in charge of someone that's in a union, it's another union. Usually management is not in union. But we are lumped together with the mayor, council, with those 3 people. And in the past, what they did was, because like I said, it was never a good time to give a raise, if they got a 2% to follow through with the non-union people, would get that same type of raise, and that's how it's been since. If it's the will of the council to change that, that's all well and good, but I don't see how you would have someone like the financial director in a union where he's negotiating union contracts. So there is a reason why some of these people shouldn't be, but and they're basically by ordinance. So whatever the will of the council is to change it or not. I mean, I'm in favor of listening to open ears.
Thank you, Council Penta. Council Guanasso, does that?
Well, maybe we should review it further and make sure we get all the facts of it, because Councilor Pensa makes a very good point. You know, you can't be in a position of bargaining and then be part and parcel to it. So that's a very valid point. So we have to be very careful as to how we negotiate this and come up with. My first gut reaction was a spirit of fairness. You know, what's good for one to get 2%, it's good for everybody. So this way here, it precludes anybody from coming up and saying, well, let me $20,000 increase. You get 2% of whatever you're making, and justifiably so, because there are different amounts of money, remuneration for each position based on a certain value for that position. And so if everybody gets 2%, that's the way it goes. You know, that's fair. I think that's fair. That's the way what my first reaction to this was. And but I do point out, and as noted by Councilor Penta, that we don't want to put somebody in a position who's doing bargaining and going to be benefiting from it too. By the same token, maybe you find harder to get a better position for those people that he represents. I don't know what the happy answer is to that, but I was just thinking of what was fair, level playing field. Because we did see this past year people come up for different increments, and we all took exception to that in the Ways and Means. And I think that this would preclude that from now on. It won't happen anymore. And so if we have to talk about this further and discuss it further, it's not going to go away. I mean, we're right here, and these individuals will understand that we're only trying to put forward the best package available to benefit everybody and be fair to our citizens who are paying the bill. That's just the point that I make, and it's up for debate.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. And to that point, this ordinance is actually the full ordinance is the raises that came up before us. So with the Director of Finance and the City Clerk and the City Solicitor. So there were two parts of that. There were the parts that gave those positions the equal 2% that everyone else got, and then there was the amount of salary increase that they wanted to get. What I suggested was that we take the part that says that they get the 2%, and we give that, pass that ordinance and pass it as for those individuals who weren't part of the union, that they get the 2%. And then we could have a further discussion about, I think, and what I said previously was that going forward, potentially what we should think about is anybody who isn't part of the union, or if there might be more jobs that aren't going to be part of the union going forward. As there are in other communities, there are a lot of communities where all the department heads are not part of a union. They get raises based on their performance, or what we could do is maybe look at a raise based on the consumer price index, so that they are getting a fair kind of wage going forward. So
that's
we don't
what
get
I was
to a
going to
point.
suggest, Mr. Chairman. A cost of living increase based on the current level of increasing, as throughout the whole country does. This is a standard that it's a standard practice in the business world, and so I think that we have to take it upon that, based on the fact that, okay, we know the mayor makes X number of dollars, but it's not really fair for him not to get an increase while everybody else is getting an increase. Or he or she who sits in that office deserves it. So that's just what I'm thinking is fair. And it isn't fair for us to say, let's give them $35,000 increase, but it is fair to say keep it the same percentage that everybody gets. And I think that that's fair. That's what my mentality is, and that's open up for the rest of the subcommittee to pass on to the committee of the whole.
Thank you,
Thank
Councilor
you, Mr.
Guanasso.
Chairman.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I definitely have no problem with Section 1. I think those that are not in a union should be compensated something equal to that the unions are getting. And I think that 2% is a reasonable amount. And I think we should at least come out with that tonight as an approval for number 1. Now, I think I have a question through you to the clerk about the time frame before elections. What? I'm sorry?
It would be 3 months prior to the end of the calendar year, so you wouldn't be able to vote on any increases past October.
Past October. So we have to watch our time frame on, if we don't come out with this one tonight, we have to work on that through September anyways. But especially number 2, where, we really only have one title we're really dealing with. So I would just be cognizant of the time frame. And I know I'm not on the committee, but I would hope that at least number 1 come out tonight, because that seems to be a no-brainer and something that's fair for those employees that are not in unions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky. Do any other Councilor Penta?
Mr. Chairman, I have no problem with Councilor Novoselsky just said and Councilor Guanasso on 2%. There are 2 separate issues. And Councilor Novoselsky brought it up, I believe, maybe a month or so ago, and I agree with him on this. You have positions that are done by ordinance that, it should be a starting salary, high salary and in salary. You could have someone that already worked in that position for 15 years at another municipality, switched over, maybe get the middle rate of that. So there is something to that. Then, someone starting fresh, there's a starting salary and middle, and what they bring to the table, and what the administration or whoever in at that time would like to say. Well, this person deserves in the first 5 years of this step, whatever. And I think there's a lot of merit to that, and I think that's something we should look into at the next meeting on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. And I know that there are wage studies that are done periodically throughout other communities, and you can get a sense of if somebody comes in as a step 1 or a step 10, depending on their experience, and that's helpful to have a set guide of how people will be compensated. And I know there are a number of outlets that do that, including, I think, UMass Boston, the Donahue Institute, I believe, does work like that. So I'm going to move that we go forward and pass Section 1 of this ordinance, which is the 2% for those individuals, and then we leave Section 2 in committee. All in favor? All opposed? All right. So we will discuss this further at our full council meeting, and with that, this Ways and Means meeting is adjourned. Thank you.